Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Nines breakdown video with myself, Mike, and Sloth today. Adeyemi, very, very good player. Obviously, played in a Champions League final not long ago, and now he's being linked with a move to West Ham. And it's reports coming out that we've held talks with his representatives over a potential summer transfer move. Now, this would be an interesting one. Anyone that isn't familiar with Adeyemi, just as a kind of a little bit of an overview here, he's German, about 5'11", still only 22 years old. His contract expires in 2027 summer, and he has an estimated value of around 28 million euros. And you can see here from the heat map, he can play across the front three, really, but predominantly he's been utilized out on that left-hand side as a left winger. So, yeah, Adeyemi, I think this is one of the more exciting links we've had this window. Obviously, nothing concrete, and we'll take this with a massive pinch of salt right now. But Adeyemi to West Ham, is it a move that instantly kind of gets you excited when you hear about that type of name?
Yeah, I think it is. Like Adeyemi's been one of those players that I know Mike and I have both watched for a long time now, and he kind of burst onto the scene at RB Salzburg, and it's the blistering pace that is, quite frankly, unlike anything we have at West Ham. He is so quick, it's ballistic, and he is someone who is not only showing. I think that he's got the ability to cut it at the highest level, but I still think there's a lot more to come from his game, and he is inconsistent at times, but when you have that much pace and when you have the body strength that he does as well, because he's not 6 foot, he's not a massive physical unit, but he's very strong. He's very hard to shake off the ball. And we're going to compare him to someone as well who is also very strong and very difficult to shake off the ball and quick. But it's the fact that I think he's got another ceiling to go, even with Dortmund's fantastic facilities and the way that they train players. I think he almost needs to come out of the environment that he's in sometimes. He's got a bit of a reputation as with an attitude. He was part of the Bayern Munich setup, youth setup, and he was actually, they cancelled his contract and basically said, you're not part of this anymore. Before RB Salzburg came in and snapped him up. And there's a bit of a rumour that his parents are part of that attitude issue and like to kind of cause problems. So I'm not surprised he's being linked with lots of moves away. And I wouldn't be surprised if he continues to be. But for him to be linked to West Ham, I think is a big statement of where we have come to as a club. And also, I think would be a fantastic signing as well.
Well, let's take a look at his kind of overall underlying data from kind of last season and how he compares to the top 5 European leagues, other players in a similar position. So you can kind of see here that big white line in the middle is the kind of average, the median line. And we can see here where his, most successful stuff is coming from. And actually at the bottom there, you can kind of see a lot of it is around his defensive actions, and interceptions. And you've also got some other stuff around the top there, like, successful dribbles in the 91st percentile, averaging around 8 per 90, which is ridiculously high. Touches in the box per 90, offensive duels per 90. He's, pretty high in those kind of statistics. So what does this tell us about the type of player Adeyemi is going to be? Is it actually more than just an interesting attacking signing with loads of pace? From that, we can actually see he's actually very solid defensively. And, something we'd say to Mo Kudus as well. He's very good defensively for West Ham, which we'll compare to in a second. But yeah, defensively, that's the thing that surprised me the most. But what would you say his biggest assets are as a player if he was to come to West Ham? This video is sponsored by Emotive. Emotive provide cutting-edge digital services, solutions, and training to companies and businesses of all sizes. Emotive have worked with some fantastic brands in the past, as you can see behind me, the likes of Apple, Google, Tesco, and of course, Babbling Irons. Emotive offer 4 key services, the first being digital solutions, the second being professional training and coaching, the third being fractional experts, and the fourth being AI readiness. We're going to be working with Emotive on our channel to improve how we showcase the data to you guys in our breakdown videos and data analysis videos. If you want to find out more information about how Emotive can work with you, make sure to scan the QR code now, which will take you to emotivetouch.com, where you can find out more details about the company, and the link will be in the description. A massive thank you to Emotive once again for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it.
Yeah, so with Adeyemi, his pace is electrifying and it's a great equaliser. We saw Real Madrid and Carvajal, who did very well against England and really quite struggle against that. And especially in transition, it can be an absolute killer for a defender because once he's gone, you're not catching him unless you are blisteringly pacey yourself. As a defender, which most aren't that pacey, they're just not going to get near him. And a lot of that defensive work is because Borussia Dortmund press really high. And as we saw in the preseason game, Lopetegui screaming press, 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 press all the time and wants that intensity. So from that perspective, he really, really does suit Lopetegui. He's really he can be loose in possession. That's something he needs to improve. And then around the area to be a little bit more clinical with the opportunities he gets and also the opportunities he creates, needs to be better in that creation.
Well, I think with obviously Adeyemi, as you mentioned there, his pace is going to be a nightmare for any defender. There's obviously a lot of stuff he needs to improve on. I think, when people look at his goals and assists last season and say, he only got 3 goals and 1 assist in 21 Bundesliga appearances last season for Dortmund. So maybe, again, he's still only young, but that lack of consistency in front of goal and, the need for an output from our left winger this season is going to be quite important, especially to get the balance of the front four right. But again, if we're looking at how he compares in terms of what type of player he is, dribbles per 90 and progressive runs per 90, you can see he's actually very, very similar to Mo Kudus in terms of how he plays. And, you look at the top right there, players like Doku and Dembele are and even Vinny Jr. They're kind of in a league of their own with this data. But you can see there in terms of, being above the median, they're actually in a very similar cross path in terms of when you're comparing to other wingers in the top 5 leagues. So again, we can also move on to this bit, which again, it gives a bit more of a wider view as to how Adeyemi compares to someone like a Mo Kudus at West Ham right now. And you can see there, Kudus is slightly outperforming him in quite a lot of them. But there are quite a lot of similar parallels into how they play, their biggest strengths, and also defensively, they're both very strong. And, Adeyemi is arguably a little bit more stronger defensively with the amount of interceptions he's making. Defensive duels per 90 and defensive duels 1 per 90 are pretty similar, pretty bang on. But again, they're very similar players. And on the right-hand side there, where you can see deep completions per 90 and deep completed crosses per 90, that's more just in and around the 18-yard box. So again, it's probably stylistic as well. So the way, obviously, Borussia Dortmund play compared to West Ham, you'd expect that to be slightly higher than what Mo Kudus is producing. But it would be pretty interesting. Like if we had Adeyemi on the left, Mo Kudus in the middle, Bowen on the right, and then a new striker. Do you think that offers quite a nice balance between, obviously the dynamicness of, say, a Kudus, even a Bowen when he's dribbling with a ball, and also Adeyemi, but then also you've got the goal scoring threat of, say, Kudus and Bowen that's slightly higher than Adeyemi right now. But with Adeyemi, it's slightly different because the defenders are going to have something a little bit more different to think about with his pace and the way he plays as well.
Yeah, I think it's the thought of those players running at you is terrifying for a defender. And I mean, Adeyemi's almost a one-man counter-attack. He is so fast. He can almost, if someone were to knock it out from a corner, like defending our own corner, and play it to him, he would have defenders quaking in their boots because, I mean, he doesn't counter-attack too much at Dortmund because they tend to try and dominate games. But I think when you look at the contrast there in terms of reading and the interceptions, it's because he's pressing, he's doing that work rate. And when you compare it to Kudus, where that's not really what he was doing with us, he was doing that, it tended to be from deep. That should give you an idea of just how much of a threat he could possess. If he could dispossess someone from deep, he's got Kudus as an option to play it to. If Kudus or Bowen can do it, Adeyemi can give them an outlet, and he will chase anything that's put in front of him. So I think in terms of a 3, that would be a fantastic set. And you know, I said about his attitude. Obviously, he was a younger man, and apparently at Dortmund, it's you know, it's not a major issue. He works hard. He definitely works hard on the pitch, and I think that if he wants to come over to the Premier League and prove that he can make it at this level, because he will want to be getting into the German national side and keeping a place there, because he's had a few call-ups and he's missed a few games with injuries, but he's a very quick healer as well, like Antonio has been for us. Even some of the bigger injuries he's had, he's only missed a few games because of them. But when you have that level of pace as well, you tend to pick up little hamstring issues or little knocks or muscular issues that people tend to shy away from playing you. So I think he would be a huge asset to us. And for his work rate, the style that we saw Lopetegui trying to sort of introduce the other day, he would be ideal for it. It would just be a question of whether he would join us, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think as well, you know, as you mentioned there, there's 2 sides to Lopetegui's system, and obviously one of those big ones is the press, and defensively, how quick can you regain possession of the ball and how high up can you do it? Kudus, we know, will be able to trigger that press. We know Bowen can do it. Adeyemi adds to that. You know, it depends on the type of striker we're going to bring in to be the initiator of that press, but that kind of line of 3 behind the striker, that's tough to play out of, especially if we can get it synchronized with how Lopetegui wants to press. So I think, you know, people
got to behind that. You got Piqueta and Alvarez as well, who also are very good defensively and are good at a press. So if you compare that 3, then you have the 2 behind, and you get a centre forward who can press as well. All of a sudden, you've got players with extreme pace in that front line who can press defenders who are sometimes not great under pressure or when they're having to be harried and harassed. You are potentially going to create mistakes. I think when you looked at that comparison with Mo and with Adeyemi, it's interesting that it's what we said, that it's that final product. That's what's missing. But from the other aspects, the way he carries the ball, the way that he's is secure in aspects of his passing, it's that final third where that passing element becomes a bit looser and is maybe less precise and secure. Now, some of that could be because he's obviously looking to maybe make those difficult passes, which means that it's a lower kind of chance to succeed, but obviously a greater reward. But then that kind of slightly countered by the fact that the expected assist is down. But the great thing is his pace. Pace scares teams, and it means 1 or 2 players drift over. It creates opportunity for other players. And I wouldn't say, bar maybe Brand, there's not massive amount of huge pace in that Dortmund front line. But if you was to put Kudus in there, and obviously Bowen's not as fast as them, but is there. You've got Gilhen as well, who is, as we know, is blisteringly pacey. If we can bring in a centre forward who also has pace, all of a sudden, if you've got players that are always attracting, maybe 1 or 2 players, you are just creating pockets of space to be exploited at any point in the game, because then naturally players are going to get drawn out of position.
What would we rate this transfer out of 10 if we could pull it off? And how high do you think we'd have to go to get this type of deal done? Because it's going to be a very tricky deal to get over the line.
Well, I think that he's been linked with Juventus this summer, and Dortmund have basically said that they aren't even willing to consider taking a loss on him. So they wouldn't take anything under the 30 million euros that they spent to get him from Salzburg. And I don't think they would want a huge amount more. I think maybe 40 million euros would probably get him. 45, I think, definitely gets him. But I think that's a fairly good price for a 22-year-old who has been playing in the Champions League for multiple years. And as we just said, you know, would add a totally different element to the attack that we had in elements last year. You know, we had a few players with that pace, but going forward can totally transform it. I think if he were to come in at, say we made a cheeky bid, 35 million euros, and that was accepted, and the reason it was because we put 20 million euros down up front, then I think that would be fantastic business. That would be really, really good. And it would have probably allowed Dortmund to go and sign Sancho or whatever. But I really like him and think he would suit the system. I'd give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it would be a really good signing. Obviously, it offers us a completely different outlet on that left-hand side that we're kind of used to right now. So yeah, I think it's an interesting link. It'll be interesting again to see what comes of this, as it's very early days. So take it with a pinch of salt for now, but this gives you a better understanding of the type of player he is and how he would suit the Lopetegui system if he was to sign for West Ham this summer. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and comment down below what your thoughts are on the Adeyemi link to West Ham. Would you be in favour of the move? Is there anyone else you'd like us to see us target for that left-hand side? Let us know, and subscribe to the channel if you are new for more content. And yeah, until the next one, lads.
All right.